In this video, we're going to talk through with you how to set up guidelines on your document. So guidelines are these blue lines that are currently appearing on this page here. And these can be really useful when you're designing your leaflet to help you lay out the different items in your leaflet neatly, and also help to show you where the folds on your leaflet will be when it's been printed and folded, so that you can design your leaflet around where the folds are. If you're using one of our leaflet templates, you'll probably find that the margins and the guidelines are already there, but it's useful for you to understand how the Guides Manager works, just in case you need to make changes or adapt them to something you're doing. So if I go to this new document here, you'll see we've got an A4 page, and currently we've got a 10mm margin all the way around the side. Now I'm just going to move it to the right hand side here and open the Guides Manager by going to View and then Guides Manager here. And I'll just move that to the side as well so we can see the page as we make changes. So let's say this is going to be a leaflet that is folded in half. We might want to change in the column guides here the number of rows to 2, because you'll see what that does is it puts a new guideline on, dividing the page into 2 rows, and therefore giving us a line guideline there that shows us where the middle of the page is, so where the fold on our leaflet will appear. You might also want to give the guides a gutter. So a gutter, if I just nudge this up to, let's say, 10mm, a gutter will leave you a gap within your guidelines. Now these can be useful. Again, taking into account the folds on your leaflet, you might want to make sure nothing that you stick in your leaflet goes into this gutter space. Therefore, you can be definitely sure that when the leaflet is folded, none of your artwork and none of your text will be too close to the fold or go over the fold. The gutter is also useful if I put some columns in, for example, in terms of helping us lay out the things on our leaflet and leaving some white space in between them. So say, for example, we had a photo up here and we had some text on the left-hand side. We wanted to make sure there was a neat gap between them. We can use the column guides to help us there with the gutter. Another thing you might want with your document is that it might be a leaflet that's going to be folded into 3, in which case you would want 3 rows. But an important thing to note here is that although the page is divided into 3 rows and 3 columns, the guidelines are only taking into account the area within the margined page. It's not taking into account the 10mm to the top and bottom and to either side. So where these rows currently appear is not where the fold on your leaflet will actually be. So we can fix that by using the manual guides. So first of all, I'm going to temporarily remove the margins at the top and the bottom here. And you'll see that the rows have now moved slightly and we no longer have the margins at the top and bottom. These rows are now exactly where the fold will be if the leaflet is folded into 3. What we can then do is add some manual guides. So if I go to the ruler here at the top and just click and drag down, you'll see we're getting an extra guideline appearing. And if I hover over the row here, you'll see it turns red and it sort of sticks. Now the reason it sticks is because I've got the snapping tool on here at the top. And it's really important when you're doing this that you have the snapping tool selected. If I go back to the ruler now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 3 more that automatically line up with those row guidelines. Okay. If you don't have the ruler here appearing, by the way, you can go to View at the top and click on Show Rulers, and that will bring those rulers into your setup. Okay, so we've now got some manual guides here. If I just zoom in, you'll see there are manual guides that I've drawn as well as the original row lines, row guides there. Okay, so now I'm going to put back the top and the bottom margins. And you'll see what's happened is that the row guides have moved, again, to just take into account the area within the margins. But those manual guides that I've drawn still appear exactly where the folds will be on the page. So what I can do now is remove the rows that we've set up there. And now we've got a much neater page with those rows exactly where we want them to be for the fold, because those are the manual ones we've drawn, but we've still got the 10mm margin all the way around. And you'll see within the Guides Manager, under the manual horizontal guides here, you've got the 4 manual guides that I've drawn listed. So if we then close the Guides Manager, our page is now set up with the guidelines that we want. One final thing you might want to do is, as we hover over the manual guides here, you'll see the cursor icon changes. That's because it's allowing me to move those guidelines. Because they're exactly where we want them to be, we don't want to move them in future. So if I click on View at the top and then go to Lock Guides, you'll see now as I move the cursor over those guidelines, I can't move them. And that's quite useful, because once we start putting things into our leaflet, we don't want to accidentally move the guidelines instead of moving an object in the leaflet. So that's a quick run through of how you set up your guides and margins. It's useful to know how to do this. Obviously, a lot of templates will already have these set up, but depending on what type of leaflet you're doing, you might need different guidelines and different margins.